Yo, 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 YouTube, what it is, man? Christmas Eve, how everybody doing today? How everybody doing, man? Today, we got a serious topic. Serious topic. And what made me want to bring this topic to light, right, is because we just had the death of another notable rapper. Big Scar, 22 years old, accidental overdose. Probably took a fake pill. You know what I mean? Been a lot of that going on all over around the world. So this just not about rap. It's just, I mean, you might know somebody that died in your personal life. I know a few that fell victim to fake pills, accidental overdose. It happens a lot. But this video is not about overdoses. It's not about overdoses. This video about something else that this opioid epidemic did. And I watched it with my own eyes. I watched it all play out. But nobody talks about this. Nobody likes to mention this and opioid epidemic in the same sentence. You know, they just talk about overdose. In this video, I'm going to talk about the settlement that 50 states in the United States just brought against the opioid pharmacy makers. They settled. Yeah, they settled. How many people knew that? So a state near you should be getting some money. And we need to make sure this money is directed in the right places. You know what I mean? So, like I said, it's going to be a lot packed into this video, so you're going to have to watch from start to finish. Because it's a lot to talk about. You feel me? But we're going to start with this. 4 of the largest U.S. corporations have agreed to pay roughly $26 billion to settle a tsunami of lawsuits linked to the claims that their business practices helped fuel the deadly opioid crisis. Johnson & Johnson and the consumer products and health giants that manufacture generic opioid medication will contribute $5 million to the settlement. The company announced in 2020 it would get out of the prescription opioid business in the U.S. altogether. 3 massive drug wholesalers, AMERICA.WILL, Cardinal Health, and Mickelson, will pay a combined $21 billion. This settlement represents real accountability, said North Carolina State's Attorney General George Stein, who helped negotiate the deal. Stein noted that most of the funds are earmarked for health care and drug treatment programs designed to ease the opioid crisis. There will be people alive next year because of the programs and services we will be able to fund because of these settlement proceeds, he said. None of these companies acknowledge any wrongdoing for their role manufacturing and distributing large quantities of pain medication at a time when opioid addiction and overdoses were surging. In a joint statement, the drug wholesalers said they had determined that enough government had signed on to the deal to move forward with the comprehensive agreement to settle the vast majority of the opioid lawsuits. In all, 46 states and roughly 90% of eligible local governments have signed on to the deal, according to the company's assessments. In a separate settlement, Johnson & Johnson said it's contributing to the deal will directly support state and local efforts to make meaningful progress in addressing the opioid crisis. This settlement resolved thousands of civil lawsuits against the companies beginning in 2014 by local and state governments as well as Native American tribes nationwide. The settlement will provide thousands of communities across the United States with up to approximately $19.5 billion over 18 years, the drug distributor said in their statement. AmerisourceBergen will pay $6.1 billion, Cardinal Health will pay $6 billion, and Mickelson $7.4 billion. Broad outlines of the deal were first unveiled in July 2021, but the company said they would accept the settlement unless enough government agreed to sign on and drop their suits. Initial payments will begin in April and will continue over the next 2 decades. The money will arrive at a moment where the opioid epidemic has escalated dangerously. Many Americans with opioid use disorder have shifted from taking prescription pain pills to street fentanyl, a synthetic opioid that is far more powerful and lethal. Drug overdoses now kill more than 100,000 people in the U.S. every year, according to the Center of Disease Control and Prevention. Joe Rice, with the firm Motley Rice, is one of the lead attorneys suing the drug industry over its alleged role in the opioid crisis. He supported this settlement and said the funds will help devastated communities start rebuilding and deal with the epidemic. Wright said the deal was structured in a collaboration with the local government officials to avoid a problem that arose with the $268 billion tobacco settlement in the 1990s. Much of the money had been siphoned off for projects unrelated to the public health impacts of tobacco addiction. Wright said he believes that won't happen this time. Going into the opioid litigation, that was recognized as being a big problem that we had to fix, he said. According to Stein, companies also agreed to fund a new monitoring system to prevent communities from again being flooded with the high-risk medication. If there are too many pills going to a community, an alarm will go off, a red flag will be issued, and the distributors will be put on notice, Stein said. It will ensure that no more communities are awash with opioids, as happened over the last couple of decades. While companies acknowledge no wrongdoing in this deal, opioid lawsuits laid bare company practice that the state's attorney general said were deeply troubling. In some cases, drug wholesalers continued shipping vast quantities of pills to small rural communities despite red flags that drugs like OxyContin were being diverted and sold on the black market. One email was shared among executives at AmeriCorps, made public for the first time during the state trial last year in West Virginia, disparaged people's addiction to opioids, describing them as pillbillies and referring to OxyContin as a hillbilly heroin. With this $26 billion settlement now approved, negotiations continue over a separate opioid deal involving Purdue Pharma, maker of OxyContin, and members of the Slacker family, who own the private company. That deal, if finalized, is expected to include Percs topping $6 billion. Meanwhile, opioid-related lawsuits continue in the state and federal courts around the country, focused largely on pharmacy chains that sold the large quantities of opioid medication directly to consumers. So after listening to that, you guys get a sort of idea, if you was watching the videos, of the angle I'm going to take this conversation. You follow me? But I ain't going to get there just yet, because I want to discuss something else with y'all. So, I was real close to this opioid problem. As a matter of fact, I got addicted. You feel me? I haven't been fucking with them for years now. But one of the things that I noticed as the time was going on, because like I said, I was there almost from the beginning. So I watched it with my own eyes in the heart of the city. And I noticed as people started to change over time. You know, first it started with, everybody popping pills, everybody having a good time. You know what I mean? And if people know anything about drugs and the effects that it has on a community, it takes time. You feel me? It takes time. For anybody that was alive during the crack epidemic, y'all seen this. At first, people don't really know what they're getting themselves into. It's all fun. Everybody nodding, having a good time. You know what I mean? Nobody's really taking it serious. Nobody knows the real consequences that this thing has or what it can do to the body. Can you feel good? So like I said, I noticed when it was just fun. It was a party thing. Then over time, it started to change. Now, and I'm talking about the streets. Now you're starting to hear things like, yeah, dude, people getting robbed for pills. People getting shot for pills. It's like, yo, what the fuck? Why is people getting robbed and shot for pills like it's just a pill? Right? That's all it is, it's a pill. But the things that it does to the body, the things that it does to the brain, makes you react a certain type of way if you're not strong-willed and strong-minded. Now, I didn't fall that deep, but I was saying some people that did. I'm talking about homeboys stealing from friends they knew their whole life. Yeah, like, get real low down grimy. Women that was once respectable is now doing things for a high. I'm like, yo, this shit is crazy. Like, yo, what's really going on out here? What's really in these pills? And how did it get like this? You feel me? Because at first, remember, if anybody remember the beginning, they was only prescribing these pills for cancer patients. And then, it's like overnight, it just changed. Listen to this.
Abuse of opioids remains a major public health concern around the country. The federal government says more than 28,000 people died by overdose in 2014. That's the most recent year for nationwide data. The health news site STAT has been reporting on the problem and what's been driving it. Journalist David Armstrong sat down with Hari Srinivasan recently.
David, your investigation looks at a number of big pharmaceutical companies that you say helped sow the seeds for some of this epidemic that we have today. How so?
Well, the way they sowed the seeds was by making this drug widely used. And the way they did that was to downplay the addictive properties of this drug when marketing it to doctors in a way that was later shown to be false and misleading.
You know, doctors can prescribe drugs off-label for something that it wasn't originally designed to, but how were the pharma companies abusing this?
Well, they were primarily abusing it in the way they were assuring doctors that these powerful opioids that are a controlled substance would not be addictive in the way that they later proved to be addictive and could be used for things like chronic pain, which we now know they're not very effective at. So they were able to broaden the market through a series of misrepresentations and through a series of aggressive marketing tactics.
How much money are we talking about? What did they stand to gain?
Well, let's just look at OxyContin. When that came on the market in 1996, sales of the drug were about $50 million. By 2002, sales of this drug were $1.6 billion, and they've continued at that clip ever since, exceeding well over $30 billion in sales. That's just one drug. So that gives you an idea of the scale here of the amount of money involved.
You were also able to take a look at documents through Freedom of Information Act requests and that were sealed that show how these drugs were being marketed. Explain that.
Yeah, so one of the interesting things is, in the case of OxyContin, Purdue Pharma, which manufactures the drug, and its partner in marketing at Abbott Laboratories, they were sued over 1,000 times collectively for problems related to this drug. But in a lot of those cases, in fact, the vast majority of them, the documents involved in those cases were either destroyed or sealed. So we've been trying to unseal some of those in several jurisdictions, and we've been successful. So in West Virginia, for instance, we saw some of the tactics that Abbott used. They did things like a dine and dash program. This is where they would meet a doctor at a restaurant, pay for his takeout order, and while waiting to pay for the order, sell him on the benefits of OxyContin. And then we wrote about a doctor, a surgeon who had a sweet tooth, a fondness for junk food, and the salespeople brought him a sheet cake filled with donuts and snack cakes spelled out to say OxyContin, and that did the trick. He was interested in hearing more about the drug at that point, and they would go back every week and get him to switch patients over to OxyContin. Those are just a few of the things.
And the sales reps were rewarded for these tactics?
Very generously. They were rewarded with luxury trips. There were $20,000 scratch tickets that were sent out to them as rewards. So the compensation was very lucrative to get these doctors to switch patients to these powerful opioids.
There are people who do need significant pain medications. I mean, they're the ones that kind of get the short end of the stick as this abuse happens. What's the government's role in oversight of this?
Well, you're now seeing, because we're dealing with a public health crisis, we have tens of thousands of people dying each year now from these overdoses. You're seeing governments, state governments in particular, move to restrict the prescription, primarily in making sure that prescriptions are a limited number of days. Before there would be 30, 60 days, and there'd be plenty of pills left over, and those would get misused. So that's one way. And also educating prescribers. Nobody wants to see a prohibition of painkillers for people who need them. But one of the keys is to make sure doctors are educated in who truly needs them and are prescribing the right amount and the right drug.
All right, David Armstrong of STAT joining us from Boston. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Sound criminal to me, right? See the things that they was doing? But don't go nowhere, because it get worse. This shit get worse. This one of the reasons YouTube they be trying to strike me. They don't really want this type of talk on here. Because it's outside of the normal and it's not biased. It's all real. You know what I mean? This not biased media. Ain't nobody got their hand in my pocket, so I'm gonna tell you how it is. But that's a lot of deceitfulness that they was doing. Taking doctors out, you know, almost like a bribe. So like I said, I remember in the streets, it was, yo, they only giving it to cancer patients. They only giving it to cancer patients. Then it just switched to, yo, all you gotta do is have chronic pain. And I'm talking about, for the people that know, you know I'm keeping it real. You had people willing to break bones for pills. I'm talking about broken foot, broken arm. Like, yo, what the fuck? Like, this person really broke their arm to get some pills. Wake up, your man to come outside. Yeah, my back killing me. Like, yo, ain't nothing wrong with your back. It's like, yo, people just started making all these excuses just to get these pills. You follow me? It was crazy. And the people that's really from it, y'all know what I'm saying is 100. You know what I mean? But we was tricked. That's the crazy thing about it. And I know we just watched that video on that settlement. I'm going to get to that. Don't worry, I'm going to get to that because I got a lot to speak on that settlement. You feel me? And I'm going to show y'all a few graphs to back up what I'm saying. So this ain't no speech without facts. It's a little speculatory because it haven't been proven, because I just think they don't want to do the research. But what I'm saying, at this time, I'm noticing the crime rate is going through the roof. I'm talking about from 2015 or 14 to 16. Man, murders in my city went from like 200 something to 350. Like, yo, what the fuck? Like, yo. And it's all around the same time that this opioid epidemic is booming. I'm talking about people is dropping overdose after overdose, all going hand in hand. But for some reason, when people talk about this opioid epidemic, this opioid problem, they never mention that. It's real convenient. They always mention to leave that part out. Now, what they do mention is the overdose in the rural community, because that's actually what gave it legs. Because if we want to be real, especially in my city, Baltimore, we done had an opioid problem since the 70s, 80s, maybe even before then. But it wasn't never epidemic level until it started touching these rural communities. Now, we know that from the videos we just watched and the article I just read, that this was designed to be this way. These people was lying. Yeah, lying. Real hard. Watch this.
Former executive director of product management recalled that Richard didn't always wait for the research results. Richard Sackler would later become the president of the company in 1999 and co-chair in 2003. His uncle and father became the co-CEOs of Purdue. Within Purdue, Richard was an avid micromanager. He would send out bulletins which halfway through read, "If you're reading this, call my secretary," and he would leave secret passwords in the text. Based on which sales reps called the secretary and delivered the password, Richard would know exactly who was reading the bulletins and who wasn't. During the 1990s, the company realized that they needed to do something about MS-Contin. The patent was set to expire by the end of the decade. In addition, the use of morphine as an end-of-life medication stigmatized the drug from being more widely available. The company moved to make a new drug called OxyContin, with the active ingredient oxycodone replacing the morphine. Many doctors falsely believed that oxycodone was weaker than morphine. The truth was, the active ingredient in OxyContin, oxycodone, was in fact 50% stronger than morphine. Later, in an unpublished study by Purdue in 1999, the company found that the addiction rate was 13%, not 1%. The FDA even approved a claim that OxyContin's delayed absorption would reduce the probability of abuse. The FDA examiner who was involved in the approval of this claim left the FDA shortly and within 2 years had accepted a role at Purdue. Sadly, this move hints at corruption. In 2015, Purdue was granted FDA approval to market the drug to children as young as 11. Almost immediately after OxyContin was released, the cases of addiction became apparent. But rather than admit their drug was addictive, the company simply blamed people for not taking the drug as directed. Even Purdue themselves had to fire one of their secretaries after she became addicted to OxyContin. So the question has to be asked, why was the use and abuse of OxyContin so widely spread?
So, I remember when I first got on these pills, right? It started off as a toothache issue. You know, that was almost like a for sure thing. Yo, you get a tooth problem, you can get some pills. Now, I really had tooth problems. I wasn't going there just to get pills. At this time, I wasn't taking them. I was actually against them. I never thought that anything would get me addicted like that. You feel me? But, like me and a lot of other people, undervalued the strength of these pills. So, they put it out there like it was only a 1% addiction level. Turned out to be 13. Wow, that's a huge difference. And these are the things that they knew, but was lying about. Was lying about it the whole time. Now, when I factor in the things that people used to do, I'm talking about, I remember going on rides all night sometimes because you know if you don't get the pills, you can't get to sleep. So, now I'm out 3 years in. 4 years in, like I said, the streets right now is a mess. People are dying for anything, left and right. And, like I said, first it was just my city. But I was always the type of person that paid attention to what was going on around me. And as I'm saying, I'm starting noticing that crime is going crazy everywhere. Like, yo, it's these pills. It gotta be. That's the only thing changed. You feel me? Like, it's one thing when crime just going up in your city, but if crime going up everywhere, in every major city across the United States, that's different. It's only one thing that all these cities got in common. It's the use of these opioids. And down around this time, fentanyl is coming to the mix. And I don't even want to get on that, because that's a whole nother topic. We're going to stay on the pills. So, you heard them say the shit that they was doing. That was just part of it. That was just part of it. But the way that they marketed these things to people and how they tricked Americans or tricked the system, man, listen to this shit.
The company began their targeted advertisements on health professionals. During this stage, sales representatives were encouraged to lie about the addictive nature of the drug.
That our best, strongest pain medicines are the opioids, but these are the same drugs that have a reputation for causing addiction and other terrible things. Now, in fact, the rate of addiction amongst pain patients who are treated by doctors is much less than 1%. They don't wear out, they go on working. They do not have serious medical side effects. And so these drugs, which I repeat are our best, strongest pain medications, should be used much more than they are for patients in pain.
Purdue then began paying off all the links in the supply chain. Distributors were guaranteed rebates, pharmacists were given refunds, and patients were given coupons for starter supplies. Academia also got their share in grants. Medical journals were even making money from advertising the drug. Politicians were given campaign donations from both Purdue and the Sackler family, but the most important link in the whole chain was the doctors. After all, they were the ones who used their discretion on what to prescribe patients. Purdue had speaking events where doctors would be flown in to so-called seminars, which were essentially golfing trips. Thousands of clinicians were paid to speak at conferences on the company's behalf. Prominent doctors on the Purdue payroll played down the effects of opioids, calling them a gift from nature, and stated that the notion that opioids caused addiction was a medical myth. During a 9-year stretch from 2006 to 2015, Purdue and other drug manufacturers in the industry had spent almost $900 million in political payments and lobbying. Purdue lobbied and encouraged regulations that required doctors to ask patients to rate their pain on a scale of 1 to 10. This gave them a more quantifiable and tangible reason to prescribe opioids.
So you hear this guy in 1998 lying completely. Said it's a less than 1% addiction rate. Matter of fact, people that can take them still can work. Yeah, some, the strong-willed ones. But for the most part, all you want to do is sit around. Because once you get to moving around, it kind of spoil the high. Because that's what people taking them for. You know what I mean? Yeah, it hurt with the pain a little bit, but the high is euphoric. People like it. You know what I mean? Then after a while, this is what they don't tell you, and this is what I can tell you from experience. After a while of taking it, it don't even work for pain no more. Straight up. Now, your body depend on it. Your body need it. Fuck the pain. I don't care nothing about that. I'm here for you. That's how the pills work. You feel me? So, now, let's talk about this lawsuit. 26 billion in that video we just listened to. But a couple other manufacturers or companies signed on. Walmart, Rite Aid, Walgreens, CVS, all signed on. Boosted the number up to 33 billion. Sound like a lot of money, but 33 billion. You talking 33 billion dollars for 50 states. When you consider the fact that Walmart grosses 500 billion yearly. Purdue, billions of dollars yearly. And they're giving these companies, which is about 7 of them, or something like that. Don't quote me, but it's about 7 companies. They're giving them 18 years to pay off this $33 billion settlement. That's probably never going to touch the streets because it never touched the streets in the settlement they had with the tobacco industry. Now they're saying they put certain things in this contract to safeguard it, so the money get distributed the way it does, or supposed to get distributed. But nowhere in anything I've seen do they mention the effect that it had on the black community in particular, because it just didn't affect the overdoses. Yeah, overdoses was a problem, but violent crime went up everywhere. Every city, every small town, any place where black people was prevalent. You factor in, you dealing with people that's already poor. Then you throw this drug in the mix. That if you don't take it, the things that it do to your body, most people can't take. So what they do is they're going to take from the next person because you got to have it. It get to a point with some people that this shit is more important than your kids. I'm telling you, I watched it. I seen it. I done seen people neglect their kids for pills. Straight up. And they never mention these problems when they talking about this epidemic, because it's still going on. Now you got the fake ones. I don't know where they came from, but it seemed like once the pills started slowing down, the fake ones got flooded into the motherfucking market. But people got these addictions. And I don't meant to say slowing down, because they actually stopped it. So these pharmaceutical companies made billions on billions of dollars. I think the man said 900. At least. That's an estimate. And they're giving them 18 years, 7 of these companies, to pay back $33 billion. And hold up, they don't have to admit guilt. Because if they admit guilt, that makes them criminally liable. So it's like, yo, this shit, is this really, it's like a big game. This ain't no settlement. The guy that wrote that article, or the lawyers that worked on that settlement, tried to make this out to be some type of win. This ain't no win. This ain't no win, because the case can be made. The opioid epidemic was way worse than what the fucking tobacco industry did. Yeah, a lot of people died from cancer. But these opioids, it affect you on so many different aspects of your life. People not killing for cigarettes. People who kill for them pills still today. Still today. So they just cut people off. Cut it off. Made the money. And I was thinking about that like, yo, if I was a money hungry guy that didn't care about the people the way I did, shit, I would do it. And I think these people knew this in the beginning. That's why they ain't had no problem deceiving the people. They knew if it all came back, all they was going to do was pay their way. It ain't hurting them. You talking about the Slacker family. Billion-dollar family. They the ones that started this. Then Johnson & Johnson hopped in it. They hopped in the ring. You know what I mean? Then you got Cardinal Health hopped in the ring. All these massive companies. Billion-dollar companies. And nobody is held liable. Couple of dollars they got spent. And I just think it was important for me to do this, man, because a lot of people, especially people that look like me, still struggling with this addiction now. I done kicked it years ago. I actually had to move to get off of it. And it took me about 3 months, to be real, to be honest. Like, that shit not easy, especially when you get up there in your milligrams and you taking 30, 50, 60, 70, 80 milligrams, probably 100 milligrams a day. And I know that might sound crazy to some people, but that's how it really is in the streets. Then you got these rappers promoting it. On top of the promoting that Big Pharma and all these pharmaceutical companies was doing. It ain't too hard to get caught in the mix. But, as you can see, man, people is losing their life daily. And it's not just by opioids. I mean, it's not just by overdose. Because you should look at these graphs. These two graphs is graphs of opioid deaths all the way up into 2019, I think, and murders by ethnic group within that same time frame. The bitches is damn near identical. It's damn near identical. So how can you refute this? Like I said, I know that I seen this. I was outside in the mix of all of it. I watched the streets change. I watched the hustlers turn into the customers. I seen it. I watched the bad chick turn into the chick that would do anything for pills strung out. I seen this. But this is not factored into that money. And I don't think the black community is going to get nothing out of this. We might get one facility, one rehab facility that you probably got to pay for cash because they ain't going to take insurance. Might be state of the art though, but it's going to be out there in the counties. It ain't going to be in the inner cities where the problem really exists. Because this is the games that they play, y'all. And this $33 billion settlement ain't shit. I'm going to keep it real. They owe way more than that. And there should be some people that's in prison behind that. And I know YouTube ain't going to like this, but everything I said was factual. Straight up. Make sure y'all share this with your people, man. You feel me? Because you ain't going to get this on YouTube, man. I'm the only one doing it. I'm the only nigga that's really from the streets. Speaking like this type of way, but giving you straight facts. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I'm out, man. Keep it G Blogger, man. Appreciate y'all. You dig?